Good evening, Winchester. Welcome to Visual Radio Live. It's December 5th, 2013. And we've lost Nelson Mandela, a great humanitarian, a man who fought for civil rights, free speech, and more. The views and opinions on Visual Radio are those of the host, Joe Viglione, and his guests, Jonathan Paley and Frank Delastrito, and not necessarily those of Winchester Community Access and Media. Its board of directors, its staff, members, and look at that. Good evening.
Hey, Joe.
Is this Jonathan Paley?
Speaking.
I just finished my disclaimer. Man, you were right on cue. Are you psychic?
I guess I'm psychic.
Psychic. Jonathan Paley of the Paley Brothers has a brand new record out. I call them records. Is that okay, Jonathan?
Hey, yeah. Well, I'm hoping that it will come out on vinyl at some point.
You know, we were talking about that yesterday. Are you familiar with Eagle Vision?
No, I'm not. What is that?
Eagle Vision is this great company. They've had Alice Cooper out. They've had, I just reviewed the Dream Theater, the guys from Berkeley. They got Roxy Music, Brian Ferry solo out. But the Rolling Stones, even though they have their deal with UMG currently, the Rolling Stones have a deal for vinyl on Eagle Vision. So I got these beautiful double record sets. The Rolling Stones live in Texas, the Rolling Stones with Muddy Waters. Double discs, impeccably packaged, Jonathan.
I'll look at the Eagle Vision. I'll check them out, see if you can arrange something.
Now, you know Carol Kay, the great bass player from the Wrecking Crew, right?
Yes.
There's a second Carol Kay who worked for Bill Aucoin. She's a publicist in New York. She's married to Ricky Byrd, remember the band Susan?
Yeah.
And then Ricky Byrd joined Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. So Carol handles Eagle Vision. She's the publicist for them.
Well, I will look them up, see if I can get in touch with them.
Yeah, and then, you know, in England, vinyl's the rage. Cherry Red Records. That might be a perfect label for you.
So we're going to have to make some kind of arrangement with Real Gone Music, the guys that put out our CD, and see if we can do something.
Yeah, because the Paleys are like vinyl. I have the 12-inch you did with the new Rendezvous.
Right. That's the EP you're talking about?
Yeah, it's a great EP with you and your brother on the cover.
Yeah, produced by Jimmy Iovine.
Jimmy worked with Grand Funk, didn't he?
No, I don't think so. He worked with John Lennon, Bruce Springsteen. I mean, Patti Smith, and now he runs Interscope. He owns Interscope Records.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's huge. He's still going.
I was thinking of Jimmy Ienner, the guy with the smile.
No.
It's Bluesheimers at my age, you know. I should know these things off the top of my head, but.
Hey, now, are we on the air now?
Oh, we are, absolutely. I did my disclaimer and you phoned right in.
Okay, there's something I got to say, Joe. Someone got married today in Boston, and I just want to send out my congratulations and my best wishes to Jodie Dombrowski, who I will always love. She got married today. Congratulations, Jodie. Your husband, I don't even know your husband's name, but he's a very, very lucky man, and I wish you both just the most happiness in the world. And I'll always love you, Jodie. And I hope you hear this.
Well, we will be up on YouTube in about a week, maybe earlier than that.
Okay.
So she'll get to see it.
And Jodie actually took the cover of the CD is a mixture of two pictures. One of the pictures is of me at Madison Square Garden that was taken by Roberta Bailey, but the picture of Andy is from the Paradise Show, and that was actually taken by Jodie Dombrowski.
Ah. Now, when you say the Paradise Show, which Paradise Show?
One where we opened for the Flamin' Groovies.
I was there.
Yeah.
That was a great night.
I had fun. It was great for me, and I love the Flamin' Groovies. They're a great band. They're still going. They're still playing.
Shake Some Action. Now, the vinyl of Shake Some Action on Sire, they were your label mates, right?
That's right, yeah.
So, I like Shake Some Action on the vinyl, 12-inch. But if you got the 7-inch 45, did you know they did a different version, a lot hotter edge, and I loved the 45 of Shake Some Action.
Yeah, that's a good one. Actually, I think there's another version too. There seem to be a few of them out there floating around, but that is the best one, the 7-inch.
Now, what was the band at the Paradise Theater backing you guys up?
Well, it was the Nervous Eaters, Steve Cataldo, Rod Skeen on bass, Jeff Wilkinson on drums, Alan Habditch on guitar, along with Steve. We had just a fabulous pianist, Jeff Lass, who is all over the record, also co-wrote some of the songs. Just a great piano player, and is actually out here in Southern California. Does a lot of television and movie work now. And then we had, let me see, Chris Phillips on percussion, and my brother and I. And that was the band.
See, that shows you the years, because, you know, the Nervous Eaters are my friends, of course. You guys are my friends, and I forgot that very important point. Jeff Wilkinson, what a drummer.
One of the greatest. You know,
Yeah.
If you listen to the Ace of Hearts Nervous Eaters record, Hot Steel and Acid, it's, Rick just got such a great drum sound on that record, and Jeff is just so good on that record. I love that record. It's really the quintessential, Nervous Eaters record to me, and I'm very proud to, be playing bass on that record.
Our good friend Rick Hart will be on my show. We're in touch quite frequently, but we haven't made a date yet for him to be here.
Yeah, I actually, I did a show about a week ago on RPM on the Luxury Lounge, Luxuria, and we played a cut from the Hot Steel and Acid record. She's Gonna Be My Baby, and I talked about Rick a little bit, and so I emailed Rick to let him know about that, and he says he'll be down at I guess they're playing with the Real Kids at the Middle East on the 28th of December. Boy, I wish I could be there for that.
I only go out now if I'm videotaping, because my ears, through the years and years of torture in the clubs, I protect my ears. That does sound like an awesome show.
Hey man, put on some headphones, put on some headphones and some earplugs, and go down there with your video camera. I'd be there if I could.
Yeah, a post-Christmas party with the Real Kids and the Nervous Eaters. That's pure Boston rock and roll from our era.
Right.
So, the name of the CD is, come again, what's the title of the compilation?
It's called The Complete Recordings.
Which of course I've reviewed, and I have it on 3 sites, but I can't remember anything these days. The Complete Recordings.
It's really, we went through a lot of tapes, a lot of mixes, but there's actually a lot more, that's involved, and I'm hoping that we'll do a volume 2 at some point. But right now that's what it is. It's called The Complete Recordings. The Paley Brothers, The Complete Recordings on Real Gone Records, Real Gone Music.
Now there's like 24 tracks on it.
I believe it's 26.
26, which is really pushing a CD. That's great.
Yeah, that was the thing. We had a limit, as much as you could fit on one CD. So we had to kind of, Andy and I had to kind of haggle about what was going to go on there besides the stuff that was released. And so, I think there's either 14 or 15 tracks on there that have never been released before. Plus there's Jacques Cousteau by the Young Jacques, which was Andy and I and a bunch of other people. It's a really great novelty record. And, but I really am hoping that we can, we'll be able to do a volume 2 and get some more of our stuff out there.
So let's talk about a couple of the tracks. 2 of them were recorded with opening for Sean Cassidy at Madison Square Garden.
That's right.
How were they recorded?
You know, they were recorded onto, it was a 2-track, but it was, there was a lot more stuff. That's another one where we had to, decide which tracks we were going to use. There's a great version of Ring Ring, the ABBA song.
Whoa.
I really wanted to put on there, but, the thing was the vocals were not quite as tight on Ring Ring as they are on Felicia and Sheila. So maybe that'll come out of the next one. But I love the way we covered that song. It's a very unique kind of arrangement of it, and maybe that'll see the light of day. But opening for Sean Cassidy was an incredible experience. We did about a half a dozen dates with him, all huge arenas, and we played at Toronto Blue Jay Stadium. I think there were like 60,000 people there. It was crazy, but it was wonderful.
Did you tape all of the gigs?
I'm sure that there are tapes. I don't know if they still exist or not, because there was, that they traveled with all that stuff, and they probably had tapes running at most of those gigs, if not all of them. But the ones what we were able to find, which was in Seymour Stein's storage area, where he had an incredible amount of music out on Long Island. That's what we found, and that's what we went through.
That is like fascinating. So did the Crystals show up for Sean Cassidy?
The Crystals?
Yeah, they appeared on one of his live albums doing, what was his song? To Do Run Run? He had a remake of one of their hits.
Yeah, that was a big hit for him. No, they didn't show up at any of the shows that we did, but it's funny that you mentioned them, because Darlene Love, who is the voice of the Crystals and the lead singer, one of the greatest singers of all time, in my opinion. When we were rehearsing for the Phil Spector recordings that we did, or recording that we did with Phil Spector, spent about almost 2 or 3 weeks rehearsing at Phil's house when he was still living in West Hollywood in the hills. And Darlene Love came over maybe 4 or 5 times, and she would come over and she would stand at the piano, and Phil would play, and she would just belt out these songs, and just one of the most incredible voices to ever exist. I mean, and she's still going, she's still playing.
Well, every Christmas she's on Dave Letterman.
Yeah, I see her. Yeah, she does that every Christmas. She's not doing Christmas Baby Please Come Home. Great record. If you listen to the stuff that she did with the Crystals, or under the name Darlene Love, I mean, like things like Fine Boy, Say I Met the Boy I'm Gonna Marry. I mean, just you listen to her voice, and it's just, I mean, nobody can touch what she does on those records. It's just incredible.
She did Home Alone 1 or 2, the soundtrack. She did All Alone for Christmas. What a great song.
I haven't even heard that one. I'll have to look that one up.
Oh, look it up on YouTube or something, man. All Alone for Christmas, Darlene Love. It'll knock you out. It's just like right back from the heyday. So she remained friends with Spector. I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah. Phil, God bless him, and it's sad what's happened, and, I really can't say who knows what happened, who knows what the hell happened, but, my experience with him was just really, really wonderful and positive. He was an incredibly talented and very smart guy, and, could be really funny as well. I mean, just, we never had any kind of negative experience with him. And when he was in the studio, we had the record crew there. We had, Hal Blaine, Barry Goldberg, Ray Coleman, Steve Douglas, and those guys, and the way that he worked with Larry Levine, the engineer, I mean, he knew exactly what he was doing, and they just had a great rapport with each other. I mean, it was just a really fun thing, and I'm pretty sure that is really the last session that he ever did with the Wrecking Crew. If it's not the last session, it's got to be one of the last sessions he ever did with the Wrecking Crew. And that's on the CD, Baby Let's Stick Together. It was just a wonderful experience.
Now, was that before or after your album?
That was after. That was almost a year after we recorded the album. We were out in L.A. and actually we went out to L.A. to do that. What happened was he was about to do End of the Century with the Ramones, and I'm pretty sure it was Seymour Stein, who suggested to him that he listen to our record and see if he wanted to do a song with us, and he did. And he called my brother up. I think it was about 2 in the morning or something, and my brother didn't. I mean, he thought it was a friend of his playing a joke on him when this guy got on the phone. This is Phil Spector. And my brother's like, yeah, sure, probably hung up on him, and then Phil called back. And this is really Phil Spector, and I want to record a song with you guys. And I think it was like a day or two later, we were on a plane. We flew out to L.A. and we spent, like I said, over 2 weeks at Phil's house rehearsing this song. And we went through a few songs, but mainly we worked on that song. And when he thought we were ready, he brought us into the studio with all those guys, and we spent one whole day doing the basic track, and then we spent about maybe 4 or 5 days doing the vocals. And then, that was it. And then I didn't actually hear the real mix that he did until years later. There's an acetate of it that surfaced through Warner Brothers. And I heard this. I was like, this is one of the motivating things for me to try and get, the Paley Brothers stuff released on CD, and also the stuff that was never released, to get that to come out. And I kept on bugging Andy about this literally for years. I was like, Andy, we really should do a Paley Brothers compilation CD. And he's very busy. He's working on a lot of other stuff. Andy keeps very busy with his work, and he was a little reluctant to do it. But once we got started, he became like a man obsessed. It was like, we're going to listen to every single take, every single mix, and we spent a long time going through that. But that Spectre track, I mean that was, I said we got to get that out there so people can hear it.
That is such a great story. Now, did Phil have 24 tracks at the time?
Yeah, it was Gold Star. It was 1978. It was 24 tracks.
The reason I'm asking is because he's famous for Back to Mono.
Yeah. Well, I think it's actually, it's mixed in mono. I'm pretty sure it is a mono.
Whoa. Yeah. You have visions of Phil Spector pulling out the 4-track or even the 3-track,
Yeah, but he did have, everybody was playing at once. It was, everybody, probably 20 people in that studio, including me and my brother and all the full-time, famous technical guys, and Barney Kessel's sons were both there playing. And I was playing one of the rhythm guitars, acoustic guitars. I remember, Phil, and I was doing some chord I was playing. He picked this one chord out of this entire wall of sound. He's like, Jonathan, let me hear that chord. He's like, what are you doing? Let me see that. He says, take that finger off there.
That's funny.
And hear that out of all this stuff. Because I was playing like an odd version of a G chord or something that he didn't like. So I was like, no, do it the right way. But he actually, that's the kind of ear this guy has. You could pick that out of that entire wall of sound.
And for our viewers and listeners, Jonathan Paley is talking about being in the studio, not only with Phil Spector, but with the Wrecking Crew. And we're in Winchester in the suburbs. We're on a bunch of cities right now on Verizon, okay, Jonathan? But for those watching and listening, the Wrecking Crew were this famous band known to industry insiders, but the general public doesn't realize they played on, the Byrds? And
played on everything, man.
Everything, the Beach Boys back in the day. And so Jonathan got to play guitar with the Wrecking Crew.
Yes, and there's actually a wonderful documentary that you can see it always does like screenings because they're still trying to get the music, releases for the music, but they have screenings in various cities at various times. It's called The Wrecking Crew, and I think it has a Facebook site. You can look it up, and I've seen the movie twice. It's just a fabulous movie because they interview all the surviving members. I think it was directed by Tommy Tedesco's son. Tommy, who was one of the great guitar players of the Wrecking Crew, and it's just a fabulous documentary. I encourage everybody to go see it.
There's a famous 45 B-side from Phil, Tedesco and Pittman.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
I can't tell you which record, but I remember that song. Phil would put songs on the flip that were what, instrumentals, right?
Some of them were instrumentals, yeah.
The Crystals' "I Love You, Eddie" was not an instrumental. That was the back of "He's a Rebel," I believe. But for the most part, he liked to focus on the A side.
And then there's some stuff he did under like assumed names, Phil Harvey, Bumbershoot, and then he's uncredited on a lot of his early stuff. He produced some records, back before he had his own label, where there wouldn't be a producer listed. He did a lot of records. I mean, he was just a very, very talented guy, and like I said, it's just a shame, what happened. Who knows what really happened? I went to his trial a couple of times.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, to say hello and show my support. I have my own opinion is that it was an accident. I don't think he really, intended to kill somebody. Who knows? But,
well, a good friend of mine is a friend of the victim. And
it's very sad what happened. I mean, it's a terrible thing that happened.
He was out there in L.A. that night, and she called, and she's a friend of him and his wife. And his wife had just recently passed away, but at the time she was alive, and they were all close friends. And he's now he's kicking himself. My God, what if he just was too tired and didn't go out, and if he went out with her that night, history would be different. Everything would be different, and it's just strange how life is. That she wouldn't have went there. She would have been with a friend, and all history would be different. But on to more pleasant subjects. Celine Dion worked with Phil.
Yeah. There's rumors. There's rumors. I've never actually. I didn't ask Phil about it, but I've heard people say that he actually recorded Elvis Presley as well, which I would love to hear.
Now, was there a flip side for your song?
No, that was it. It was a single. It was going to be our second album, and that was it. That's what we did. We recorded one song, and who knows? Maybe we would have done more if it had ever come out back then.
Now, where you fellows on Sire had Andy working with movie soundtracks, sounds like a Phil Spector, Paley brothers would have been great for a movie soundtrack. You could have, maybe the right film didn't come along for that.
Well, like I said, if the record had come out back then, maybe we would have gone back into the studio with him. I think maybe there was. We got along really well with him, and especially Andy. Andy loved Phil, and I think Phil really loved Andy too. They stayed in touch afterwards a lot and saw each other quite a bit too. Andy used to go to his house a lot. I went there a couple times. I went to his birthday party a couple times. But Andy was, he stayed close with Phil.
I'm just thinking, if you guys had performed the Paley Brothers and Darlene Love, now that would have been a fun single.
Oh man, I don't know if I can.
I know.
I would be embarrassed to sing on this name. It'd be an honor, but she's just. Her. What a voice and what a performer. There's nobody like her.
Yeah, it's a counterpoint on Rendezvous. It'd be perfect.
Yeah. Well, that would be wonderful. Maybe, who knows? Maybe it could still happen. She's still out there.
Well, Doris Troy, who had the hit "Just One Look."
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know she's that voice on Dark Side of the Moon.
Which voice on Dark Side of the Moon?
The wailing, over the instrumentals.
Oh.
the Pink Floyd, that masterpiece by Pink Floyd. It's Doris Troy of Just One Look fame.
Oh, I didn't know that. I did not know that.
If you got the vinyl LP, pull it out and you'll see her name. And she was a good friend of mine, and unfortunately we lost her as well. But we do a little thing we on the show called The Demo That Got the Deal. Okay? For Doris Troy, the demo that got the deal was Just One Look. Atlantic put out her demo. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
And then we had the demo that got the deal with Steve Cataldo, had to do it twice. Because when Steve first did it in 1992 on 93.7, I used to produce Harvey Warfield's show up there in Lawrence.
Yeah.
On WCGY. So Steve phoned in, and the tape got erased. Or no, it never took. When we taped it, nothing was on the tape, so Steve did it again on the TV show. So now I'm going to ask you, Jonathan, what was the demo that got the deal for the Paley brothers?
Well, we sent a lot of tapes to a lot of companies, and there were more than one song. I'm trying to think now. we had versions of like 4-track versions of Rendezvous. We had a song called My Feet on the Street, or the Beat of My Feet on the Street, or I think it was the Beat of My Feet. That's one. And then there was we did a cover version of Tennessee Waltz, and I think maybe that was the one that really caught Seymour's attention and surprised him, because he loved that song, the original Tennessee Waltz. And he came to see us we played outside of Boston. I think it was in Gloucester. And he came to see us play, and pretty much said right then, I want to sign you guys. We didn't sign right then, but he said, I want to sign you guys. And we had some interest from some other people, but he was really enthusiastic, and he really liked the demo, but he also liked us live, and that was how that all got started.
And in Gloucester is Willie Loco Alexander. He lives there.
Yeah, I know.
And on Solo Loco, he did Tennessee Waltz.
No, I didn't know that.
I was the A&R man for the French label, New Rose Records.
Oh yeah, that's the Real Kids. Andy did the Real Kids for them, right?
Andy did the Real Kids, but I was the first act that Patrick Mate had signed back in '78. He had a label called Flamingo, so he made me the A&R guy, and I signed Johnny Thunders from the New York Dolls, and then Willie Loco became available after MCA, so Patrick wanted him, and we recorded at Electroacoustics in Boston, which is now the Outlook in Bethel, Maine.
Uh-huh.
But it was right next to this club called Jacques. So you played there?
That was like wasn't that like a lesbian bar or a gay?
It was a drag queen bar.
Right, drag bar. Yeah, right.
It was a drag bar, and the queens would be out there fighting with knives at night. So Connie and Ted moved to Maine to get away from the real craziness of the. It was almost like a second combat zone sometimes.
Yeah, I for a while I drove a cab in Boston. And I remember, we used to get calls from I guess it was one of the managers or something, and we'd have to drive her back to Jamaica Plain, after closing time.
Well, Rick Berlin booked the club for a while recently, or a few years back, but it's like the only club with a midnight license because, they want it shut at midnight. So it was a very interesting part of town. And there's Willie in the next room doing this really Primal Scream version of Tennessee Waltz.
Wow.
I gotta get a copy to you. You gotta hear it.
I would love to hear that. Now, you mentioned Johnny Thunders. I knew Johnny. Actually, I rehearsed with the Heartbreakers like 3 times in this loft downtown Manhattan when they were, trying to, find a guitar player, a second guitarist. When Richard Hell it was Richard, Jerry, Nolan, and Johnny. And I played with them. I rehearsed with them like 3 times. And Johnny and I got along just really, really great. He he loved the way I played. And Richard, I'd known Richard before that, and he and I were friends. But for some reason, Jerry Nolan just hated my guts. I don't know what it was, but he just did not like me. So I didn't end up in the band, which, who knows, probably was a good thing, probably saved my life, I don't know.
It probably saved your life because Johnny's gone and Jerry Nolan died rather, that he's gone too. But Johnny was the real thing.
And people, sometimes I hear people talk about it and say, God, he was so nasty, he was such a jerk, he was so, he was talented, but he was a real asshole. I never saw that part of him. He was always, nice to me, friendly, and we got along really well.
Well, he was nice to me, but I got him a record deal. The word is that he had spit in the face of an A&R man in America, and no labels wanted to touch him after that. And the Daughters, the Boston band, the Daughters.
No, I'm not familiar with them.
They're now the Two Saints and the Darlings. They were the Two Saints, the Darlings, and Joe Mazzari band. But they're part of the Willie Loco crowd. So the Daughters were backing up Johnny, and that's how the tapes came to me. They knew I had the New Rose affiliation, and I signed the deal. And Johnny had a career on New Rose until his passing,
Did you ever hear the story about Johnny being scouted by the Yankees?
No.
Supposedly, he was a really good, shortstop. A good defensive shortstop. From what I understand, he was a good defensive shortstop and got scouted by the Yankees, but then, got into rock and roll and drugs and that kind of, steered him on a different path.
That's pretty funny. I saw them March 1st, 1973, down at the Katie's.
Yeah, I never saw the Dolls play.
Oh, they were great.
Of course, I saw the Heartbreakers. I saw their first gig at this place in Queens. I can't remember the name of it now, but it was in Queens when it was a trio before Walter joined the band. It was Richard, Jerry, and Johnny. I was still hoping to get in the band at that point. Canterbury. I think it was called the Canterbury or something like that. Anyway, and and then when I had my own band, I formed a band called Mong. We used to open up for all those bands, in late '75 through '76 down at CBGB's, and we opened up for the Max, and we opened up for the Heartbreakers a couple of times. We opened up for Television, but so I used to see, I used to see him around all the time, hang out,
What was the name of your band?
Mong, M-O-N-G, one of the worst bands to ever exist, but we had a lot of fun.
Oh, that's the main thing. You had fun. When I first saw the Dolls in March of '73, it was like being in an airplane hangar with everything turned up to 15. Not 11 like Spinal Tap, but like 15. You couldn't hear yourself think.
At that point, were they all were they doing the red leather thing then?
Yeah, they were in the leather, and they were. It was definite glam, and they couldn't really play. A year later, they were on Revere Beach, and maybe it was 2 years later, they were really great. They really actually learned how to play, and they were very, very good. So I remembered how they had evolved into a really good rock and roll band from being this very loud aggregation that was, kind of just like really pounding out noise. They got refined, and they really, look at them now, they're iconic, even without Johnny.
Yep, I know.
I love Sylvain. Have you heard his solo records?
I haven't heard his latest solo stuff, but we actually once in a while communicate with each other via I guess he's out here in L.A., right?
I don't know. He was in New York, and he played Boston in 1998, 1999. I videotaped him at what Spit before it became the House of Blues. Because a friend of mine has a record label that had Sylvain out, and he let me videotape him, and it's a great tape. Sylvain was just awesome, man. Just very, very good.
I didn't even know that Spit became the house. I haven't been to Boston since 1990, but we used to play Spit when I was when we were Taldo and I were doing the Reflectors, and then the second version of one of the versions of the Nervous Eaters after the Reflectors. We played there a bunch of times. And there was and what was the place? Also, there's another place on Lansdowne Street by Spit. I can't remember the name.
Avalon, connected to it.
Well, it was another club. It was a whole other club.
There was Mamakin. The Aerosmith owned the Mamakin.
Maybe that was it.
And then if you walked out of Spit and you went to the right, there'd be Mamakin. If you went to the left, there was Bill's Bar.
It wasn't Bill's Bar. I would have remembered that.
And then there was Jillian's Billiards.
When I first came, one of the earliest things in Boston, when I started going up to Boston, I went to the Sword and the Stone, not the Sword and the Stone, the Cask and Flagon, and it was Johnny Maestro and the Brooklyn Bridge playing live. Johnny Maestro played bass and sang lead. You know, and he's famous, of course, for The Worst That Could Happen with the Brooklyn Bridge, which was just a great record. But also the Crest.
Right.
And he was a really good bass player. I mean, he played bass and sang, and just a great voice. It was a fabulous show. It's the only show I ever saw at the Cask and Flagon.
I saw the Velvet Underground there without Lou, with Doug Yule.
Wow.
And Bruce Springsteen.
Wow.
Well, you know that I was taping everything back in the day, so my tape of the Velvet Underground is on this box set from Captain Tripp Records in Japan. And no one ever came to me for the original master, which I have digitized, and there's more songs on it, but they put it out, and it's called Final VU, so it's 4 discs of the band, the Velvet Underground, without Lou Reed in it.
Wow. Now, I saw Bruce Springsteen at Max's, and he was the opening act for a band called AIM, A-I-M, and Clarence Clemens actually played tuba in the band, and that was I was like, who is this guy? It was like probably 73, 74, something like that. Yeah.
And Venus de Milo was another club.
Yes, I don't even remember that.
Oh, Venus de Milo became Bill's Bar, so I'm trying to come up with the clubs on Lansdowne. But yeah, the House of Blues, the Lyons brothers get out of the Avalon business, and the House of Blues took it over and renovated it. It's the House of Blues.
Wow, the Lyons brothers. I haven't heard that in a long time.
I guess they're doing restaurants now. I think they found that more comfortable, than you evolve.
I think it was Charlie, right? Charlie Lyons?
No, John Lyons and Patrick Lyons.
That's right. Yeah. One of them lived out in Fresh Pond, and used to have these incredible parties out there that I remember going to. And this was like the early '80s, and it was just crazy stuff going on out there.
So you remember the band Spirit, Randy California?
Yeah.
I Got a Line on You.
Yeah.
We brought them to Boston in 1991. No, it was like 89, and WZLX, because Harvey Warfield was there. And so Harvey was friends with them. We brought them over to Avalon. And John Lyons loves Spirit. So Lyons called Harvey up, and his 10-year-old son answered the phone and was playing a video game. He goes, "This is John Lyons for Harvey." So the kid goes, "Okay, I'll get Dad." And he puts the phone down and continues his video game with John Lyons holding. When the kid finished the game, he went and got his dad, and we booked the gig.
Wow.
Poor John, he was waiting for a video game to end. It's a pretty funny story, but...
Yeah. Boston was, I don't know if it still is, but I mean, back then it was like, there were so many clubs, all over town, and a band, I mean, you could actually, eke out a living playing in a local rock band by doing the circuit of all these clubs, both in Boston and the surrounding areas. I mean, all the there were just clubs everywhere. I don't know if it's still like that now or not, but
it isn't. It isn't. The Middle East and Cambridge and TT the Bears and the All Asia and the Club Bohemia. There's a good 5 clubs in Central Square, Cambridge, but that wasn't our scene back then. Remember? Is
Jack still there?
Nope, gone.
Wow, I played Jackson. But what about the In Square Men's Bar?
Nope, he's a friend of mine. He's the owner is on my Facebook, but the In Square Men's Bar is long gone.
Oh boy, that was a strange room to play because it was like so long and narrow, and you had to play across this like very narrow space.
It was like a mini paradise, if you think about it.
Oh man, it was much smaller than the Paradise.
Right, but what I'm saying is you're looking against the wall. You're staring at a wall in front of you, you know?
Like at the bartender, like 3 feet in front of you, you can reach over and get a beer. You know?
It was fun. We did a WCOZ night there.
Yeah, oh God, COZ.
That was fun. That was fun. So I'm excited. You know, I'm hoping that maybe you do a download of the live at Madison Square Garden. Just put the whole thing up on download, you know?
Well, you know, I mean, it's, you know, to be honest with you, a lot of it is pretty rough performance-wise. I mean, you know, especially vocally, and it's mostly, you know, because, you know, I was like, whoa, I was like in shock. I was always like, oh my God. And we went through this stuff, and the stuff, and, you know, Sheila are two of the tracks where the vocals actually, you know, matched up really well, and I wasn't totally screwing up like I was on a lot of the other stuff. But you know, but there are some aspects to some of the other tracks, especially Eric Rose on guitar. I mean, he's such a great guitar player, and he did some just incredible stuff when we were playing live. Maybe a little too much sometimes.
Now, was it the Nervous Eaters and Eric Rose?
Oh, it was the Paley brothers. I mean, you know, Eric and my brother were in the Sidewinders.
Right, I saw them.
Eric's family and my family, my parents and Eric's parents went to college together in the 40s. And I've known Eric since I was, you know, a child. We used to visit each other. His family lived in Washington D.C. We were living upstate New York when I was a kid, and we would go down to visit them in D.C. They would come up and visit us. And Eric, you know, was just always this great guitar player. And then Andy and Eric, you know, started actually Catfish Black before they were the Sidewinders. They were called Catfish Black, and it was Andy on drums. Andy, you know, started off as a drummer. He's just a fabulous, great drummer. Still is. And
I saw your brother play drums at the Stone Phoenix Coffee House with the Modern Lovers.
yeah, well, there you go. You know, it's funny. I know Andy and I both did a series of shows with Jonathan as the Modern Lovers at the Kitchen in New York, and I think it was 1974. And it was Andy on drums, and then sometimes I'd play drums. We'd switch on and off. We'd switch guitar to drums, backing Jonathan up, and that was and it was great because you know, and in the audience at the time, although we didn't know it, were David Byrne, Chris Franz, Tina Weymouth, you know, who later, you know, went on to do the Talking Heads, watching those shows. And there actually is a recording of one of those shows that you can find on the internet. And also, Jonathan would step aside and let Andy sing a couple of songs, and we did "Good Night Baby" I think it was originally by the Cookies or somebody like that. But the Butterflies, which was on Redbird Records. We did a version of that, and sometimes we did Rendezvous.
I mean, these days were precious, and
oh yeah,
the kids today don't understand what was happening and how special it really was.
You know, and at the time, you know, I didn't realize it. You know, I mean, I was thrilled to be playing.
You were living it. How could you realize that you were living it, you know?
But then later on, you know, people would, you know, bring these things up and I'd say, oh, you know, I played with the Marlins. And they'd say, oh, get out of here. You never played with the Marlins. I don't want to argue with you about it. You know.
We've got our film critic in about 2 minutes, but I want to ask Eric Rose on guitar and the Paley Brothers. Who else was in the Paley Brothers band?
Okay, well, once again, it was the Nervous Eaters. It was Steve Cataldo, Rod Skeen.
You mean with Sean, on the Sean Cassidy tour too?
Yeah, on the Sean Cassidy tour, we took them on the road, and yeah, it was the same lineup that was on stage at the Paradise.
Only Eric Rose joined too.
He was with us all along. He was.
Oh wow!
He was on the original album. He's on the Paley Brothers album. He's on our EP. He's on our first single. He was on all that Paley Brothers stuff.
So it was really the Nervous Sidewinders.
Well, the Nervous Eaters were not on the record.
I know. I'm just saying, no, live, it was the Nervous Sidewinders. I'm being funny.
It was the Nervous Sidewinders featuring Mong.
There you go. Jonathan, we got to have you in studio if you ever come back to Boston.
I hope to.
You know, because it's a lot of fun in studio. But we're thrilled that you called. It's been awesome talking to you.
I want everybody to rush out.
No, we can't say that. So I got to stop you. We're a nonprofit here.
Oh, okay.
So
right.
rush out and go to the Paley Brothers website. Is there a website?
Yes, there's a Facebook page, the Taylor Brothers.
Okay, yeah, go to the Facebook. It's free. Go to Facebook and look for Paley Brothers.
Yes.
And yeah, we can talk about anything free, and the Facebook is free.
Great.
Cool, Jonathan.
For the music there.
Hey, keep on rocking, man, and we'll keep in touch because I'd love to have you in studio sometime.
All right, thank you, Joe. It's good to have.
All right, man. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye. Jonathan Paley, that was fun. And now it's time for Frank. Good old Frank. We're going to change the show if I can dial the right number. We're going to change guests.
Frank Telestrino talking about movies.
Welcome back, Frank.
Hi, it's good to be back, Joe. How you been?
Good. I just talked to Jonathan Paley by phone. He phoned in. He was in the Paley Brothers. They opened for Sean Cassidy, David Cassidy's younger brother.
Mm-hmm.
They did a tour with them back in the 70s. So I've known the Paley Brothers for decades, so it was great having him call in.
Joe, you've known everybody for decades.
It's just, we were reminiscing about the old scene. It was a lot of fun. But how did you do? Did you go overseas?
Let's see, my wife and I went to Spain and Morocco.
Spain and Morocco. Did you enjoy it?
We did. My only advice is don't drive in Madrid. It's worse than New York, and it must be worse than Boston.
That bad, huh? And
Hey, Boston's one of the more unpleasant places I've ever driven in my life.
Me too.
Madrid gives it a run for its money.
Me too. I've driven in Boston and New York, and they're both tough.
Yeah, well, the thing I don't mind about New York is that it's so crowded, the traffic never goes very fast, so you can't kill anybody. But in Boston, it's a madhouse.
Well, I'm on this long and winding road that comes to this TV station, okay?
Yeah.
And some SUV on this long and winding road where you just got to go slow. And I don't go that, I'm in the speed limit, and the guy's up, or gal is up against my bumper with these big headlights. And I'm going to do a show. What's the point?
Yeah.
Just back off.
The first time I drove in Boston was like over 20 years ago, and I got back and I said, up there, the bigger the car has the right of way.
That's it.
Doesn't matter what the law is or what the.
And I like going the speed limit. I just like I like to be mellow and be ready for my show and be in a good frame of mind. And they're all, they're not all. There's some good drivers out there. There's some maniacs, and it's just It's like the Rebel stuff set.
Rebel set. So that's
the Rebel Rough. The Rough Rebels.
The Rebel set is the movie you're showing tomorrow.
And sorry for driving you crazy with the wrong title.
It is hard to find out the movie when you got the title wrong, but we made it. Okay, tomorrow night you got to talk about two movies tonight, right?
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, and we have we've got 7.5 minutes to do so.
Okay, so the Rebel set, 1959. It's a heist movie. And it starts off in the beatnik world, but it quickly gets out of that, but it's got this jazzy score. And, Joe, movies like this are one of the reasons I love doing this show, because I never would have heard of this movie and certainly never would have watched it, except I had to watch it for you.
Thank you, Anthony.
And it is a delight.
Thank you, Anthony Gamari.
Yes, thank you, Anthony. It's a wonderful film. I mean, it's cheaply made, so you have to, kind of go with that flow, but it's well written. It's certainly well acted. They picked up a lot of... if you watch the movie, you'll see a lot of familiar faces that you'll have trouble putting a name to. But you say, I've seen that guy before, because even some of the very small parts are played by familiar faces. I could name some names, but they wouldn't mean anything to most people. But you'll say, gee, I've seen that face before. The face you're most likely to recognize is the criminal mastermind behind the plot, which is played by the Edward Platt, who is a name that may not mean many things to many people, but he played Chief in the old Get Smart series.
Oh, whoa.
And he's quite out of character here as a criminal mastermind. He's quite good. And I can't praise this movie enough, and I really admire it when people go ahead with no budget and don't let that stop them. And the reason it's so good is its director is a man named Gene Fowler. Won't mean much to most people, but he was an A-list editor in Hollywood for many years. He directed a handful of films, but he was mainly an editor. And his photographer again, won't mean anything to anybody. His name Karl Struss, but he was an Academy Award-winning cinematographer who was in the 1950s. He was on the downside of his career. But the two of these guys together, they must have been the source behind the inventiveness of the filming and a lot of these lower budget movies, you kind of have to strain yourself with the plot, and that really doesn't happen here. I can't say enough good about this movie. Your viewers are in for a real surprise if they give it a chance, because it is low budget. It's easy to dismiss it. I was looking up the comments on it online, and they quite frankly don't do the movie justice. It's much, much better than I was anticipating, and I said, hooray, Anthony.
Very cool.
That's the movie. Yeah, Anthony has found an overlooked gem as far as I'm concerned. I could watch this movie 20 times more and still like it.
Excellent, and that's going to be played tomorrow night at 9 o'clock on December 6th.
Yes.
Now, next, the 13th, which we won't be here, we won't be on the 12th.
Okay.
Because there's a party here. No, there's a board meeting here.
Okay, which hopefully will become a party. And
the party's the night before. But you're invited. You and your wife are invited to fly to Boston, come to our Christmas party.
Not in the winter. You invite me in the summer, we might make it.
Okay.
One thing happens in Houston, you lose all resistance to cold. It's going to be in the 30s tomorrow, and you people would laugh at the temperature we're going to have here, because it's quite pleasant for you, but we're going to die in it, because you lose all resistance to cold down here. Okay, the movie for next week is Two-Fisted Law. It's a Western, filmed in 1932. It's remembered today mainly because it's one of John Wayne's first movies. He's 25 years old. He's on camera a lot, but he doesn't have a lot to do. He's mainly in the background. And it's also an early movie of Walter Brennan, who is an actor that the younger generation may not know, but he was the first man to win 3 Academy Awards. And, of course, he was the star of The Real McCoys through the 1950s. And he has a bigger part towards the end of the movie. You hardly see him in the beginning, but towards the end of it, he becomes central to the plot. But it is a Tim McCoy movie, and Tim McCoy is forgotten by anyone but Western aficionados now. But he was one of the major Western stars of the 1920s and 30s. And think about a lot of the Western stars of the 1920s and 30s. They were great cowboys. These guys could ride. These guys could shoot. They had actually been lawmen in the Old West.
Oh.
A lot of them came to Hollywood, including Tim McCoy, as technical advisors on Westerns and got into it. They were great cowboys. They weren't such great actors, to be sure. The dialogue is kind of flat in this. But I enjoyed it because it's an example of the Westerns that used to saturate early television when I was a kid. This movie is barely an hour long, and movies like this would have been trimmed to fit a half hour or an hour time slot when I was a kid. And these are before I became an avid Costello fan, before I discovered The Adventures of Superman, I was watching old Westerns on TV because that's what there was. They were playing old Westerns like this. So this is a very Depression-era Western. It starts with the foreclosure of Tim McCoy, the hero. It starts with a foreclosure on his farm, and there's the farm of his girlfriend is about to be foreclosed on, and it's all done by this dastardly villain. And you can see the era it was made in, because that's the center of the plot. There's some gunfire near the end, there's some heroics near the end, but basically it's people complaining that they mortgaged away their lives and now they got to pay the piper. One thing to watch in this movie: this is an era when people were much shorter than they are today, noticeably shorter than they are today. Tim McCoy's the hero. His official height is 5'11". To that I say, ha ha! I don't think so. But John Wayne is a real live 6'4". And especially in the beginning of the movie, when John Wayne comes in the scene, they tend to have. There's one scene with him and 2 other cowboys.
10 seconds.
Okay, they're standing on a platform, and he's then standing in the street so it won't accentuate his height, because he's at least 8 inches taller than these guys.
And the movie again is called?
Yes.
Two-Fisted.
The Toy is tomorrow's Rebel set. Talk to you soon, Joe.
Two-fisted law, right? Right.
Two-fisted law is next week.
Thank you.
Thank
Good night.
Bye.
And that's our show for tonight. Visual Radio with Frank Delastrito, Jonathan Paley, Views and the Opinions in Mind. Reeling is next. You can watch Reeling right here on WinCAM, and then you can watch Rebel Set tomorrow night on WinCAM.